Welcome back from that short break. In case you're just joining us, this is the News International edition, and we're coming to you live from our Vision Group headquarters here in Kampala, Uganda. Now from Japan, images show buildings that have been damaged by a landslide in Karatsu City, southwest of Japan, where 3 people are missing as forecasters warned of the heaviest rain ever in the region. 1 person was killed and hundreds of thousands were urged to evacuate their homes in southwestern Japan on Monday as forecasters warned of the heaviest rain ever. Torrential downpours after a week of steady rain have caused rivers to burst their banks and sodden earth to collapse in deadly landslides, including one that killed a 77-year-old woman.
The woman's home was engulfed overnight in Saga region, the local fire department told reporters. Her husband has recovered consciousness and taken to hospital. A second woman was feared dead after last being seen clinging to a car in rising flood waters in the neighboring Oita region, officials there said. At least 9 other people were missing in landslides in Fukuoka and Oita regions, where more than 420,000 people were under a top-level evacuation warning, stating your life is in danger, you need to take action immediately. Nearly 2 million more in Fukuoka, Hiroshima, Saga, Yamaguchi and Oita were under a lower-level warning, urging them to evacuate if they were in hazardous areas. Japan has 5 levels of evacuation orders, but people cannot be compelled to leave their homes. Rains and wind gusts were very strong. There was lightning. It was so horrible. Takashi Onizuka, 62, of Tachiyarai town near Kurume in Fukuoka, told our reporter. The Japan Meteorological Agency JMA said the heavy downpours risked flooding and landslides across Fukuoka and Oita. This is the heaviest rain ever experienced by the region, Satoshi Sugimoto of JMA's Forecast Division told reporters. The situation is such that lives are in danger and safety must be secured, he added. Footage on national broadcaster NHK showed a gash in the hillside above a home in Karatsu City that had partially collapsed into a river, with many of its traditional roof tiles smashed or sliding off. Images from elsewhere showed surging rivers washing over bridges that normally sit well above the waterline and floodwater turning local streets into streams. Japan is currently in its annual rainy season, which often brings heavy downpours and sometimes results in flooding and landslides as well as casualties. Scientists say climate change is intensifying the risk of heavy rain in Japan and elsewhere because a warmer atmosphere holds more water. The weather agency said it had already been raining for more than a week in the region. Landslides are a particular risk in Japan during heavy rains because homes are often built on plains at the bottom of hillsides in the mountainous country. In 2021, rain triggered a devastating landslide in the central resort town of Atami that killed 27 people. In addition, in 2018, floods and landslides killed more than 200 people in western Japan during the rainy season.
Now, the effects of climate change continue to affect many countries. In India, at least 15 people were killed in floods and landslides triggered by monsoon rains that battered northern India, with New Delhi receiving the most rainfall in decades, reports and officials said on Monday. Roads in several parts of the capital were submerged in knee-deep water as it was overwhelmed with 153 millimeters of rain, the highest precipitation in a single day in July in 40 years. With at least another day of heavy rain forecast, authorities have ordered schools shut in New Delhi on Monday. The Press Trust of India news agency reported that 15 people had been killed in the past 24 hours in 6 northern Indian states. Hill states were the worst affected, leaving 6 dead in Himachal Pradesh alone, where landslides blocked about 700 roads. Omakar Sharma, a disaster management official, reported. India's meteorological department has forecast more rain across large parts of northern India in the coming days. Official data shows monsoon rains across the country in the first week of July have already produced about 2% more rainfall than normal. The summer monsoon brings South Asia 70 to 80% of its annual rainfall, as well as death and destruction due to flooding and landslides. The rainfall is hard to forecast and varies considerably, but scientists say climate change is making the monsoon stronger and more erratic. Now, Syrians gathered at the site of a car bomb at a car repair shop in Shawa, a village near the Turkish border held by pro-Ankara fighters. 5 civilians, including children, were killed and several others were injured, said rescue workers at the scene, which number has risen to 18 plus those in a separate incident. We have more.
Car bombs killed at least 8 people, including 3 children, in 2 separate incidents Sunday in northern Syria, a war monitor said. One blast hit a car repair shop in Shawa, a village near the Turkish border held by pro-Ankara fighters, residents told our reporter. 5 civilians, including 3 children, were killed and 10 others injured, the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said. Areas held by Turkey and its Syrian proxies in northern Syria are the scene of regular targeted killings, bombings and clashes between armed groups. In the second incident, an explosive device planted in a vehicle killed 3 fighters affiliated with the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, in the city of Manbij, according to the observatory. Manbij is a former stronghold of the Islamic State group that is now held by a military council affiliated with the US-backed SDF. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the bombings. Syria's war broke out in 2011 with the brutal repression of anti-government protests. It has since evolved into a complex conflict involving jihadists and foreign powers and has killed more than 500,000 people and displaced millions.
مساء اليوم الأحد 9 تموز وقع انفجار.
In the evening of Sunday, July 9th, a car bomb blast hit near the city of Ar-Rai on the outskirts of eastern Aleppo on the road to the village of Shawa. We, the White Helmets, responded to the car bomb, which exploded near the car mechanics and repair shops. 5 were killed at the site, including a child, and there were 3 wounded, including a child.
كان 5 جثث من بينهم جثة طفل كذلك 3 مصابين من بينهم طفل.
And finally, football team cave rescue celebrated anniversary. The gloomy cave in northern Thailand held fewer viewers than for the teenagers who as boys endured weeks trapped in its subterranean caverns as hundreds gathered on Monday to mark the 5-year anniversary of the rescue of 12 young footballers against impossible odds. Known as the Wild Boars, the team entered the Tham Luang cave in June 2018 and emerged 18 days later to global acclaim after a daring international operation that rescued them from the flooded depths.
Now in their late teens, the boys and their coach Ekapol Chantawong descended into the sport-lit chambers of the Tham Luang Cave complex to pay tribute to the thousands of people who worked for 18 days and nights to get them out. If it weren't for the people involved in the rescue mission pulling their weight to help us out, we wouldn't have survived and wouldn't have been alive this day. But the joyful anniversary was tinged with sadness following the death of 17-year-old captain Duwang Pech Promthep, who passed away while on a football scholarship in Britain earlier this year. His former teammates each laid white flowers at a memorial image of him outside the caves, surrounded by crowds in the bright sunlight and vivid jungle flora. The boys were on a day trip to the cave complex on June 23, 2018, when heavy rains flooded the complex via underground waterways. Varawut Silpa Arch, Minister of Natural Resources and Environment, appreciated the rescuers that carried out the tough mission, as well as reminded the boys to be grateful. The rescue mission was an incredible feat where humans stood against nature and tried to accomplish something that should have been impossible, but we must make it possible. Every second that you walk this earth, please remember that you still can draw breath because of the sacrifices made by the tens of thousands of heroes. They were feared dead until 2 British cave divers negotiated a series of narrow waterways and corridors and found them on July 2nd, trapped in a deep chamber 4 kilometers from the entrance. In a highly risky operation, they were sedated, dressed in wetsuits and breathing apparatus, and hauled through the complex by foreign cave hobbyists, expert divers, and a team of Thai Navy SEALs, including Saman Kunan, who died during the rescue. Despite the odds, the boys and their coach all made it out alive. Abdul Samon, one of the footballers who shot to fame after he thanked the divers who found them in English, was granted Thai nationality following the rescue, as were his coach and two teammates. Speaking on Monday, the now 19-year-old said he had just graduated high school in the United States and would shortly be attending university. I study in the US. I just graduated high school back on June 10th, and I just flew back here. I'll go to a university in the United States after this. While there has been a steady stream of books, TV series, and film adaptations of the rescue, the boys themselves have mostly kept out of the limelight.
And that's all the international news we had for you today. We'll be back again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Thank you for watching and have a good afternoon.
Urban Life.